Hello and welcome to the Balanced Approach podcast with your host, me, Louis Padian. These podcasts are released every week, so be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to be kept up to date.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Balanced Approach podcast with me, Louis Padian. Today we'll be discussing a bit of a different approach to how we might talk about diets. We usually talk about how to be successful, which we'll touch on today, but actually I think it's really important to know about why diets fail. And the reason I thought it'd be really important to discuss this is because, one, most people who have dieted have failed at dieting in the past or regained some weight, and that isn't a form of judgment. Actually, the statistics really are quite damning on that it's quite high. Within the 3-year period, the vast majority of people have gained that weight, if not a little bit more. And it's not a sign of you failing. Often it's about that the diet's not set up for you, that it didn't have your best interests at heart. And actually there's lots of different things and lots of different flaws within that process, and hopefully we can pinpoint some things that you can focus on to be more successful when you do diet in the future. So what does dieting or diet failure actually mean? So when we define dieting, it is a sort of a planned, focused or structured way in attempting to reduce your body weight, and that's done often by following specific rules, having a set out plan. And these usually have a time frame attached to them, which is part of the problem, which we'll discuss later on. But most diets really get results in the short term or get results in the sort of short to medium term. But when we look at the long term, actually, they don't really set people up for long-term success. They sort of, a lot of them rely on people coming back after they've regained that weight, when we're looking at slimming clubs and things like that. Or if we're looking at seasonal sort of diet programs that might be run by gyms, where they might do a Santa shred or a summer shred, that they get people to lose weight really quickly. And then they leave them for a couple of months, they regain that weight, and then they go, you know what worked last time? They're running another weight loss program. I'll do that for another 6, 8, 12 weeks, however long. Like I said, unfortunately, most diets have really poor success rates long term. And actually, a big change in this is that we actually sort of view obesity not as a individual problem, but as like a chronic lifestyle condition. So it had its status changed to a sort of a disease a couple of years ago, and that allows us to hopefully view it a bit differently, rather than seeing it as an individual failure or an individual problem. Actually, we can see that it's lots of factors and how that actually impacts the individual, not just on carrying extra weight, but in regards to their health outcomes long term. When we are looking at sort of commercial, which is one of my main focuses during my masters, was looking at sort of the sustainability or the effectiveness of current commercial weight management programs on sort of their sustainability. And the vast majority of them, there's lots of correlations within that, but the vast majority of them looking for that 5 to 10% weight loss. And that's where we sort of like clinically significant. The reason we aim for that is because the vast majority of health outcomes come within that 5%, and people can get a lot of benefits in those initial stages. So actually, alongside weight loss being really tough, aiming for that 5% is really sort of a good marker. And we sort of see that over 3 to 12 months when we're looking at commercial weight management programs or community run ones, or sort of ones run by the health service, that we want people to engage in. Something that really struggle with stuff like the NDPP, which is a really popular one, which is the National Diabetes Prevention Program. The way it's laid out is 12 months, which feels like a big commitment. And initially it runs a bit more intensely, so you turn up every week, and then eventually it fades to every 2 weeks or every fortnight, and then monthly, and I think they've got a long gap at the end. But when people hear about a 12-month program, alongside the other issues of people probably not taking diabetes very seriously, actually they go, I can't commit to that. So it's a bit of the individual being unable to see the benefits to it, but also the program's not really being able to sell that. But like we said, during those programs, we look for between 5 to 10% weight loss. We see that during these programs, people tend to do quite well. they are part of a community, they have structure, they have guidance, they have guidelines in place. However, once that's pulled away, which is one of the things that I want to introduce when I eventually launch my own group program, hopefully very soon, that the lack of support, the lack of accountability, the lack of framework, people really struggle with that and don't really know how to maintain, and almost have to learn a new way of eating post diet, when actually that should be part of the process, in my opinion. And that's what we see when people are successful at maintaining that weight loss, that the guidelines put in place, the habits, behaviors allow them to transition a lot more smoothly, rather than going, I'm losing weight, and then get to the end of it and go, right, hit my goal, now what? And we really say, well, we don't know what to do. Or they go, well, I can't really stick to the thing that I was doing previously because it was really tough. Well, I'll just go back to my old ways, and that's when they regain their weight. So it isn't about effort. There's lots of things going on, as you're probably getting from me explaining it, but also things around when weight loss happens, people's appetite increases. People tend to be able to do things for a short period of time, but actually might not fit their lifestyle. So once they're committed for 6 to 12 weeks, can they carry it on for the next couple of years with the level of activity that might be really high, where they might be doing multiple gym classes a week, or going for quite high amount of activity in regards to their steps? That might not be sustainable long term. And if we don't take that into account and we carry on eating the same or go back to our old habits, then that's just a recipe for weight gain. There's also things around the environmental factors, psychological, food being highly processed, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's really easy to overeat. And it also ticks a lot of boxes on the sensory and taste scales as well, with it being usually high in fat, high in salt, high in some form of carbohydrate, usually sugar, low in fiber, low in nutrition, low in water. So getting something that's really calorie dense, that's really easy to overeat on, and usually is quite affordable, has a good shelf life, all these things, and also marketed really heavily towards you as well. There's a really interesting report. I say interesting for me, you might not find it that interesting, called the Foresight Report, where they sort of had this massive like spider's web of all the things that sort of contribute and impact on each other, and how they're interconnected, like sort of cause weight gain or obesity. So there's lots of things coming at you from lots of different directions. Poor sleep's another one. Marketing, social norms as well, around portion sizes, stress, so many different things. But all of these things are pushing us towards regain, weight gain, and make it harder than simply than it needs to be. So I've sort of pulled that 3 different things that I think are really key parts of design flaws in common diets that you should probably be aware of. So almost like red flags when it comes to weight loss, or common diets that you might be marketed to. And these are things that we commonly see across the board. When we see these shreds, when we see these detox diets, when we see these slimming clubs, yes, they have some elements of success to them, but these are the things that will trip you up long term. So first of all is overly restrictive and really rigid. So what I mean by that is that usually they're very low calorie. The reason that they do that is because, one, people like to feel that they're on a diet, that they're doing something. They like to try hard. They don't tend to see the sustainable elements. They go, oh, I'm trying to lose that stone this week, rather than me saying, well, it's probably going to take 4 to 6 weeks to lose that. So people will go, right, I'm going to go as hard as I can and white knuckle it and hold on. Highly restrictive. That will increase if you go very low calorie, probably increase your results quite quickly and increase buy-in. This, on the other hand, increases people's drop out to these diets. This increases people's chance of binge eating or having a sort of poor relationship with food, that they go all or nothing with a lot of these diets, where they don't know how to build a healthy relationship with all these different types of food. That we might see rigid rules around that as well. So people having good, bad foods, they might have forbidden foods that might lead them to overeating on those specific foods as well. We might see that this eventually comes into sort of binge eating later on, that people weight cycle or yo-yo diet, where they are on plan, where they are really restrictive, they're eating this low calorie diet, they're not having the foods that they want to enjoy, or they're completely off plan. Or if they have a little bit of that food that's off plan, they think, stuff it, I've ruined my diet now, I might as well go all in on it. So it's a really, really toxic relationship with food, but also really, really bad for your weight cycling as well, where you're losing weight quite rapidly and easily regaining. Second is that there's no actual behavior element to it. It's more about instructions and rules. And rules are really rigid, they're not very flexible. And we need our behaviors and our ability around food to be really flexible to be able to handle life in general, because life happens. So consistently we see when things are successful with regards to or weight management programs or diets are successful for behavior for health, behavior change is a key part of that. We look at the skills around that, we look at goal setting, we look at self-monitoring, we look at gaining feedback from that, being curious on that feedback, what's working, what's not, elements around problem solving, usually within groups as well, which is really interesting, and then also lapse prevention or relapse prevention. And what I mean by that is when you trip up, when you might mess up on your diet, when things don't go to plan, how do you respond to that? How can we make sure that we get you back in a better place as soon as possible rather than spiraling out of control? Many diets just tend to provide sort of a good list, bad list, a diet plan, and that doesn't really allow you to live in the real world. And this is where it's a bit unsexy on my part, where the answer is often it depends. Would it be better to have this food or that food? Well, it depends. What's your goals? What circumstances you're in? If I tell you never to have bread, which I'll talk about in interesting study in a minute, bread's actually a really nutritious food and actually really good for adherence to diets. But if you're told you can never have bread and you go to a hotel in the morning and the only thing they've got is toast on, you don't like any of the other foods or whatever, and you choose, no, well, I can't have bread, I'm not going to have breakfast, I'm not going to have breakfast at all, then you're going to get to your lunch absolutely starving, which probably leaving you open to overeat. Or if the only options at lunch might be sandwiches, well, I can't have bread again. Well, and as soon as you have a bit of bread, you think, stuff it, oh, ruin my diet now, I might as well have all the bread in the world. And actually, me going, well, I never tell people not to have bread. It's all about the danger in the dose. There's always been a lot of these things. Then that adds a bit more flexibility into it. That it's actually, you can have bread, but maybe not have lots of bread. Maybe having 2 slices rather than 4. Maybe having 2 slices at lunch and 2 slices at breakfast, and then having some at lunch as well, but also having some of the carbohydrate sources in there to have a bit of variety, a bit of diversity in your diet. The thing that I was going to mention around bread is there's a really interesting study that I refer to as the bread study. I can't remember the reference off the top of my head, but that doesn't matter right now. Is that they gave 2 groups the exact same instructions with regards to their diets around sort of, you can eat anything you want. We're going to monitor your weight loss over the course of an amount of time. But they told Group A, you can eat anything you want. Group B, they told them they can eat anything they want apart from bread. You can't have bread. And what they found was weight loss results were pretty similar, but the Group B, who were told they can't have bread, there was a bigger dropout rate in that. So people were less likely to be able to stick to that diet long term. So having that flexibility actually might mean that you're able to stick to your diet long term and therefore get better, more consistent results, but also stay there as well. So back to the 3 points. So second was no behavior change element there, just instructions and rules. Point 3 was focusing only on scales or the physical before and after and ignoring the other aspects around it. So I've got patients that come to me that are pre-diabetic, that have polycystic ovarian syndrome, who are worried about their blood pressure. All these things are really important, and that's stuff that really matters. We know that weight loss can help with that. But if I just said it was pass and fail, we're aiming for this, as common diets do, where they give you a target goal that you need to hit, that you need to get within the normal range of BMI, which again has its limitations and issues, it's very much black and white, pass or fail. When actually what we want is a holistic look at people's health. We want to look at their sleep, their relationship with food, their energy levels, their health markers as well, which are important. We might look at their weight, might look at their waist circumference, might look at circumferences all over their body. We might have a look at their waist to hip ratio or waist to height ratio. All these different things that we can use to monitor progress. We can do before and afters as well. However, if your sole goal of losing weight is to reach that pinpoint of, say, you want to lose 10 kilos or 2 stone, if you within a certain period don't reach that, so you might lose 8 kilos or a stone and a half, that's very much pass or fail, when actually we might not get towards that marker. And that's why weight goals can be quite tricky, and actually having multiple measures of success can be really useful because we're moving in a general direction, because those scales have their limitations, but means that we don't get caught up in that pass or fail, that we know that we might get to a point where when we're losing weight that we start to feel pretty well, and that weight might be unattainable that we were aiming for in the future. It might be a couple of kilos too light that we might feel I might have to restrict my food a little bit more, or we might get to that point and go, actually I might want to go a little bit further. The reason I say this is that we need to have a holistic look at this as a perspective of not all weight loss is healthy, and therefore we need to tread carefully rather than saying you need to be at this specific weight. People can get to that weight really unhealthily with really unhealthy methods. People can be at a slightly higher BMI or higher weight with quite a healthy lifestyle, and that's something that we should encourage as a whole. So it isn't just about the number on the scale, it isn't just about before and after. The interesting thing about before and after is if you've got a massive program that is marketing you with these amazing before and afters that people have worked really hard for, one, if they've got thousands of people going through that program, they only need a handful of people to make those amazing physical transformations to market to you. They only need 5, 10, and you're bought in. So the other thousands of people who didn't get the results, who were unable to stick to it, well, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really work long term. So actually, you might be looking at the minority rather than the majority. And then also, that picture doesn't really tell you about how that person's lifestyle is, but also it doesn't have the after photo where they might have rebounded really hard. It might not show you that the female might have lost a menstrual cycle, the male might have lost his sex drive, that female might have damaged her relationship with food, she might have a really bad binge eating problem, she might feel really low on energy, her hair might be falling out because she's dieted that hard. I know these stories. I've worked with people who have been on these diets, and these are the results that you don't see in the before and after photo. So being very aware of that, but also when we're talking about numbers that people have lost as well, about actually was that done in a healthy way, and actually looking at it as a graded approach of, right, we're going to review things as we go. We don't want to hit a certain number. For example, we might be going, right, let's just aim for a kilo this week and see how we feel. Let's aim for a kilo the week after and see how we feel. And for example, we know for every kilo lost is about a 16 to 17% reduction in your diabetes risk. So again, improving your health risk and looking at that as something that's really positive, because that person might have a history of pre-diabetes or diabetes in their family. So us looking at it from a health perspective and looking at the things that whoever's selling you this diet is marketing, that's really important, rather than just a number of kilos lost or pounds lost or stone lost or a simple before and after. So those are the three things that I think are red flags. Here are 3 things that I'd recommend you to do. So shifting from a specific weight issue to looking at it as an ongoing health and lifestyle issue. And that might feel like it's quite a medical thing, but this, when we look at other comparable conditions, which we know in the same category as sort of high blood pressure, pre-diabetes, all that sort of stuff, helps people with seeing it as an ongoing thing rather than just a one-time solution. And what I mean by that is that this isn't just about losing weight, it's about losing weight and maintaining that weight loss long term. That isn't just about the weight loss, but also the health benefits that we're going to gain from that, and the lifestyle benefits and the quality of life that you're going to gain from that. So all these things look at a long-term mindset, looking after future you, rather than me just going, right, here's a 12-week shred plan or a 6-week shred plan, stick to that, and you're going to be lighter, but you might feel horrendous from it and probably going to have to lose that X amount of kilos, X amount of pounds again and again, because we're not teaching you anything along the way. It also reduces the shame about relapse, that you don't see it as a finished product, you see it as an ongoing thing. So you're constantly reevaluating, learning skills, upskilling, learning from these situations, rather than seeing them as a complete failure when you regain the weight, going, oh, what's caused that? That allows us to be more compassionate in that approach, but also stop it happening again in the future. And eventually, we're going to get a really, really good skill set. Next up around that, speaking of skill sets, it's almost like I've planned this out. Look at behavior change toolkit. I also talk to patients and clients around toolboxes, not just a meal plan. We sometimes do sort of plan out meals and look what a week looks like for them, but it's usually quite flexible. We usually mainly focus on skills and behaviors. That could be self-monitoring. which could be around steps, food, weight. It doesn't have to be tracking your food in an app. It could just be keeping a handwritten food diary. It could just taking photos. I probably wouldn't use these AI photo food estimates with calories and stuff. They don't seem particularly good yet. They might be in the future, but right now they're probably not as accurate as they're sort of made out to be in marketing. But the main thing around this is being flexible. So rather than me going, you need to have this for breakfast, it's about, right, let's look at the skills around building a good breakfast. What's a good breakfast look like for you? For some people it's bigger, some people it's smaller. It usually has a bit of fibre in there, a bit of protein, but it might be warm, might be cold, might be something you can plan the prep the night before, might be something when someone works away, it might be something that they can get on the road. So lots of different ways to look at this. So it isn't just me going, right, you've got to have your protein every morning, or you've just got to have 4 eggs, a 4 egg white omelette or something like that. We try and be flexible with this. Another thing is around graded elements to it, that it isn't a pass or fail. It's about being able to dial things up and down. So these habits or these goals aren't like a light switch where it's pass, fail, on, off. It's actually like a dial that we turn up and down. So whether it is we hit 10,000 steps on average, it might be 6,000, it might be 3,000, depending on where that person's at initially. But as they get more confident, we might dial that up, but they might have a busy week, so we dial it down a little bit. That's okay. That's what is really, really important, that we can dial things up and down, keep consistent, rather than going, I've not hit my 10,000 steps this week. What's the point? Might as well not do any. Actually, that probably wasn't realistic. We might dial that down a little bit. Problem solving, or if and then strategies. So looking at, if at breakfast they only have bread, then what other things could I pack with me? If I'm late home from work and unable to go to that gym class I want to go to, what can I do instead? If I'm not feeling well, then I can do X, Y, Z. Maybe I put my calories up, I rest, recover, make sure I'm having nourishing foods, allow myself a bit more flexibility with my food so I'm well, rather than pushing on through. Those strategies are really important to sustainable long-term weight management or weight loss and maintenance. If you don't have that flexibility, if you don't have these if and then strategies in there, as soon as it isn't that perfect setup, or you can't force it anymore, you really, really struggle, and you go, fuck it, might as well sack it all in, and that's where the regain happens. Last on the sort of behavior change toolkit sort of thing would be around social support and accountability. So having a tribe that has your vibe, one where those behaviors that you're trying to do or you're trying to achieve are the norm and celebrated. So giving yourself the opportunity to be in that environment, learn from others, shared problem solving is really, really important. Last but not least, this is one of the key things that I often see people go wrong, is making your diet fit your life rather than the other way around. We don't want you to get a diet and wedge it in. We want to see where you're at currently, and then make sure that we've got a diet that slips in there, that's realistic. Because yes, you might have to do it for a while, but often people really, really struggle to allow that diet to, or get that diet to work long term. So actually, you've already got a diet, let's just see how we can improve it. That's really, really important long term. So hopefully that's been a useful sort of conversation for you, useful podcast episode for you. Key points to take away: that regain, weight gain, these things aren't failures, these are sort of just learning opportunities. So reviewing as we go, looking at the reasons why we've not been successful long term, and reviewing those things and seeing how we can work on them better in the future. Most diets being aware that they are built for short-term weight loss. They're not looking at your best interest at heart. They're probably looking at you returning later on to repeat and pay them again. So being really, really aware of that. Has it got behavior change in there? Has it got if and then strategies? Has it got a real structure that fits your life? And like I said, a sustainable approach treats obesity, weight regain as sort of a long-term issue, an ongoing issue, and use behavior change tools that fit your life and your values. That isn't just a prescriptive plan that you can just do once and then problem solved. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I look forward to catching you next week.
Thank you very much for listening to the Balanced Approach podcast. If you have any questions, queries, or would like to reach out to me, please do. I am at Louis Padian Nutrition, which is at LOUISPADIAN Nutrition on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all social media platforms. If you're looking for support in achieving your goals and living a healthier and happier and more balanced life in the process, just click the link below and inquire about working with me. But remember to subscribe wherever you're listening, share it if you think that people might find it useful, and I shall speak to you soon.